some insight and some perspectives based on our client projects, some of our early adopter client projects for the last 4 or 5 years, about some tips and hints of how to get end user, how to get UC planning done right. I've been in technology for 30 years, hands-on as a field engineer, and moved up the chain, value chain and dollar chain. I think we're finally at this stage now, honestly and truly, where communications and IT technologies have come together and can truly transform how you do business. So one of the things I thought we see as technologists and analysts, we look at why has this happened? Well, I think there's 2 parts. Move to software applications for all the vendors, and if I included, combined with cloud delivery, is where it has really changed the ability to have applications differently. As well, the third piece is really that if we didn't have the networks, we didn't have the wireless networks within buildings, we didn't have Wi-Fi in public places, we didn't have 3G and 4G, means that we can actually use these applications and we can also use it across devices. Well, you know what, that's the good news. The challenging news, though, is there's so many more choices, there's so many different ways that you can do things. So putting it all together is a lot more challenge for all of us. And you can imagine for me and my small distributed team, we're an underserved, ignored class called micro-enterprise. We want all the same stuff that you larger organizations have, but we don't have massive IT departments and we don't have lots of people to run it. So we're asking for the same type of solutions. So I think those factors coming together have really made a difference. I spend a lot of time at the C-level organizations, and I'm a very visual person. Lots of us come up with words, lots of us consultants in the industry come up with words and stuff. I really thought about what really is unified communications visually. So if you look at it, the red box is the IP telephony systems and applications. The green box is the call center applications and systems. The gold box is the PC servers and core business applications that run your business, whether that's financial or manufacturing or distribution. The purple box is the data network infrastructure underneath things. And then the blue box is the smartphones and collaboration applications. Well, and in the core is the customers. It's not the infrastructure, it's the customers, it's the end users, where you have to fill in and factor in support, training, management tools, and processes. The part that's really interesting about UC and telephony and VoIP and UC apps is every time you now change any one of these pieces, you better darn well be thinking about the others and the impacts. So some of you may be just looking initially at upgrading your networks, or you might be looking at changing your phone systems. Well, they are all tied together now, more so than ever before. So I think that's one of the most important things for you folks on the end user side to factor in. Because if you don't think about it and you're only looking at it from a single piece, you're not going to have a successful, you're not going to have a successful implementation. What does this mean for clients like yourself that would have to and are looking at procuring different technologies? Well, you have to build a strategy and you want to build your architecture migration. Well, there is the opportunities to change how you procure things. I spend a lot of time with procurement departments and they go, well, what do you mean we have to go to 6 different companies or 7 different companies in the past to get these solutions? So fortunately, you have organizations like BrantTel and others that are starting to come together and pull it all together for us. But it really does make the procurement journey more challenging. And if you're interested, we can talk to you later. But I really wanted to share about profiles. So a lot of people say to me, well, what do you mean by profile? We have X directors, and we have X managers, and X supervisors, and X number of frontline managers. And I go, no, throw those levels and dollars out the window, totally. When you're looking at developing your future UC strategies and architectures and designs and bill of materials, which the vendors will do for you, you really need to develop a 3-dimensional matrix of the different kinds of capabilities that people will need. And so, for example, there's about 6 here, counting facilities. Some people say to me, well, we'll give all the executives everything because, they want the fancy phones and they want the smartphone and they want the big monitors. And, well, maybe they want it, but do they need it and will they use it? Conversely, you may have a mobile user that their communication requirements are some of the hardest you will ever have to deal with. And they can truly benefit from soft clients, multiple ruggedized devices, cell phones and smartphones. So it's really taking a very, very different approach to how you want to design your future strategies and architectures. One of the things that's interesting about fixed location knowledge worker, depending on your business disaster plan, you may sit there and say, well, they just need a PC and a hard phone. Well, if your disaster plan says, go to a telework facility or go to another building, and something happens, they're not necessarily going to have the ability to continue to do their jobs, right? Same thing as admin assistants with the famous, sidecars where you have 5 different add-on modules. That's critical to their business so they can see the executives and see who's on the phone. So these profiles look at who they communicate with currently, who they want to communicate with in the future, how often, what volume, frequency, what type of devices, so that when you give that information and you include it in your RFP, then the vendors like BrantTel actually can do their designs and do the profiling and come up with accurate bill of materials. If you don't do this kind of work and you just say, trust me and just go figure it out, it's going to be a very long, painful journey, right? So if you can't come up with giving them profiles of this type, I'll show you some more in a minute, it really does make a difference. So if you think about it, for some of you that are the old school telephony, it's sort of like station reviews on steroids, right? It's really telephony station reviews, IT station reviews, messaging, calendaring, all of those. So the profile would have all of those factors in them by these job functions. Again, it's not job role, it's a communications function. The other thing that's interesting when you're looking at the profiles is from a business perspective, and some of you may disagree with me, and I welcome questions at the end. But it's really important for you to describe by the type of medium that you want, because where you want your people to work. So not just at the headquarters, maybe you could be able to do touchdowns in branch offices or branch factories, or to be able to work from their trucks or from their cars or from the airport lounge. Once you come up with that, you can actually develop business features and functions and quantities. So you say, okay, I've got 47 executives and I need a hard license for a phone, I need a speakerphone for the table, and you put a develop a matrix where you put it all together for each one of those profiles. And even capacity related to voicemail and multimedia and presence and things like that. What's also useful is, if you think about it, you're actually doing a little bit of your design, or a lot of your design, that you would need for your install. So you do all this information up front, and you take the information and you put it into your, I use the term RFX, because I think the days of forcing the industry through a request for information, and then a request for proposal, and a request for quote. We had one organization, by the time they went through that journey, the technology was obsolete. It took 2.5 years. Like, it really did take a long time. And it took them 2.5 years with about 40 people on the bid team, and it took the vendors, hundreds of people. But more importantly was, by the time they got to making the decision, we were now into second generation unified communications. And we really had to go back and redo it all over again. So the challenge, or the gun that I have for you, is to really think about as customers, is to develop these characteristics and put them down in the features and functions. Again, it's not saying what is the technical feature, it's saying the communications capabilities. So you're not saying I want a license, a 1X license, 27 copies of this. You say I want the ability to have 27 people have my voicemail answered on smartphone, tablet, and computer. Right? So that's what, again, you're giving the characteristics in a business language. And then the experts can take that information and do effective designs. The other part that's interesting here, so we covered the technical specifications. Also now, if you're going to look at what do you want to get out of supporting, so you need to be able to define the operational requirements internally and externally. If you're saying you're going to go to cloud, you're going to go to hybrid, define to the vendors what that means from your perspective as a customer, because then they'll be able to give you accurate solutions and pricing. Also, it's interesting if you can define how much education you need, and think you need, and would like to have. So for example, we have the train-the-trainer approach, we have the system admin trainers, and why not ask for an end user for the whole company? You may not take it initially, but if you're finding your folks, if you get it in your original budget and you're finding that your folks aren't adapting to technology, you've already got the figures. Your executives have been sanitized with the dollar figures, so then you just go, okay, we're taking that and we're invoking what was in our original quotes. It's much easier to try to do it that way than not, and then go, excuse me, can I ask for another $60,000 for training? It's better to put it in the first time. Support is an interesting one as well with UC Solutions. If you're going to look at having managed services, for what parts? If you're going to have some of it in cloud, for what parts? This is an area, some of you that are my age, you grew up in the outsourcing world as well. Boy, the lawyers made a lot of money trying to define performance measures in outsourcing deals. Well, they're coming back and they're making a lot of money trying to define performance measures and service level agreements in unified communications. It's actually a lot harder if you think about it, going back to my puzzle, because in the old days it was just the data center and the terminals and the network. Well, now it's all the pieces conceptually. The better off you can define these, the better off you're going to get a more accurate solution with more accurate pricing. So, the idea is, I'm just looking at questions here. I don't want to give time for you guys to ask questions because you want to take advantage of it. What we've done is we've actually developed automated tools internally, and then some clients said to us, well, why can't we use them? So the short version of the story is we now have tools that we're offering to clients that they can use the tools and use them themselves. And we factored in, over the last 10 years, total cost of ownership and return on investments. But I think you really need this information to summarize so that you can define, validate, and negotiate vendor contracts. I also wanted to give, I've got a couple of other slides that I got asked to give some thoughts and feedback on about, okay, I've been talking about how to acquire UC. Well, okay, if I'm taking that green piece of the puzzle and I'm looking at how to acquire a contact center. So some of us get pulled in from the contact center side, some of us in the consulting industry get pulled in from the telephony side. The interesting part about trying to look at contact centers is, there's this siloed approach where you have lots of different technologies and lots of different vendors. I think the last one, Bob and Luke and I that work on larger organizations, they could have, in a contact center, they could have 10, 15, 20 different applications from 3 or 4 different vendors. Then you take the telephony and you take the IT and applications. So that's how contact centers are working today. To add on to Tracy's view, from a more architectural view, the contact centers that the clients are asking for and the public is asking for are really wanting to have all of these pieces put together. So if I look at that contact center capable diagram and I think about an enterprise contact center diagram, well, they're really the same. Anybody, do you guys agree that they're really the same functionality? What do you think is the major difference between an enterprise environment's requirements and contact center environment's requirements? What's the major one? There's one major difference. Reporting. Right? Reporting and performance management. So the contact center of the future, you're going to try to do reporting and performance management and tracking of activities across more interfaces that might be shared within your corporation. So when you're going, if I go back to my puzzle, all of a sudden systems management, systems reporting between the enterprise part of the organization and the contact center part of the organization are linked together. Or are they? Or should they be? Right? I'm giving you guys questions, but these are the things, if you're looking at going to next generation technology solutions, who's going to own performance management? If it came in through the contact center, but then it starts to cross to the organization, does it then sit in IT or does it sit in customer service? Right? Whose budget does it come out of? Right? You guys are going, oh heck, what did that Fox woman do to me? She's giving us too much stuff that's making us think after lunch. Right? But this is what we're seeing from some of the early adopter clients that are looking in the industry. So if you get it right, so if I say UC and CC, or UCCC, that sounds like a good drink or something. When organizations are looking to multimodal contact centers, it's more important than ever before to look at how to have these two together as your procurement activities. So, being consultants who get paid to look at risk, well, the cost and the risk of doing it all wrong, you over-purchase. So if you don't think about profiles, you buy licenses that you're never going to use and you don't need. So you buy them once and you have to pay recurring revenue, and you have underutilization. You may have unexpected integration costs. If you don't do the thinking and planning up front, that one will probably be one of your biggest problems, followed by the third one, which could be integration failures. It doesn't mean the technology doesn't work. It means the requirements were not well enough defined to enable both you guys as the clients and the industry partners to help you. So what can that mean? We've seen a couple situations where it's had an effect on a brand because they just sort of threw things out there from both a social media and contact center and UC perspective, and it could have significant brand effect. Well, what's the cost of doing it right? We've done about 10, probably 8 to 10 different UC projects now in the last couple of years. Started our first one in 2009. Most of the ones that we're looking at, have a reduction in both capital and operating of 25 to 30% overall. And that, by the way, is including increasing their network capacity. So they've made network changes from MPLS to SIP. They've had to add more bandwidth in lots of places, and then they've consolidated and streamlined their applications. One of the things that's interesting here for organizations that are people-based, so the business services market, which is lawyers, accountants, and consultants, we're in the sector that's sort of taken on UC first, and I've worked with some of the organizations as their consultant. We're looking at personal productivity because we're so used to tracking time anyway. We're looking at personal productivity increases of 7 to 15% per year. That's huge, right? So it's not so much about cutting costs or cutting people, it's more what can that organization do with that additional time back, right? Have them do things. And these are business users, not just IT users. So in summary, I want all of you guys to be on this side. I like it when technology works as a technology advocate. I feel really sad when companies have problems on the other side for a variety of reasons. So in summary for you, structured methods and processes and tools enable both customers and the suppliers, like BrantTel, to the ability to optimize their resources, to streamline how they do work, also have auditability, which is becoming more and more important, right? Gain control of their infrastructures while reducing costs and risks. So the real key is you need to do this up front. Okay? You really, if you're going to look at next generation, moving to next generation UC and contact center technologies, you really need to do it up front. And the analogy I'll give you just in closing, it's sort of like, okay, you're going to build something, and if you haven't figured out, is it a subdivision, or is it a high-rise, or is it a single-family house? How do you know how many board feet of lumber, and how many bags of concrete, and how many bricks, and how many nails? You have to really think about what's the function of your infrastructure, of your business, of your building, and then you can, how many rooms and all that, so it's the IT equivalent, so that you can then go to markets to get effective pricing and solutions for you. And then you will have a successful